Hello, true believers. Welcome to my channel, Mr. Miracle Comics. My name is Dave, and today we have 5 more undervalued books for us to take a look at. All right, so I woke up in a great mood today. Wanted to share my mood with you, make this video, share some specs with you. Hopefully, I've got some picks here you guys can go out and find some really cheap spec picks today that I think are way undervalued, and yeah, lots of movie tie-ins, some that are just good on their own. And yeah, let's get into it. We'll take a look. All right. So Black Widow, delayed, right? So we've had a couple delays of these things. It gives us a little bit of extra time to get some of those spec books into our collection before we see anything. I would expect to see some more trailers, a little more opening up of things coming up probably, late fall or even around Christmas time if they're going to do it for the next summer. But we want to get those books before we see any kind of character advertising. And I think a great spec book for the Black Widow movie is here from 1976, and it is Champions #7. And this has the first appearance of a character named DARKSTAR. Now, DARKSTAR, she was a KGB agent. She was trained in the Red Room at the same time the Black Widow was. She's a mutant. She has her own powers, very similar to the way that Scarlet Witch is portrayed in the MCU movies, but using a dark force manipulation, the same dark force that Cloak uses when he does his thing. She can project this energy. She can trap people with it. She can teleport with it. She can fly with it. She's got quite uh, like a use over the DARKSTAR energy, right? Now, being as she's so tied in with Black Widow and Black Widow's history, she very much could be a character that they see in the Black Widow movie. We don't know exactly what's going on, but there has been lots of rumors and even some actors, putting it out there that they are part of the Soviet super soldiers, and she was a Soviet super soldier, which if you don't know who the Soviet super soldiers were, they're the Russian equivalent of the Avengers. And they're not particularly bad per se, but they came into being right in the middle of the Cold War when it was kind of at its peak. So, they were just kind of always against the Avengers, not necessarily being bad, but just had a different agenda than they did, right? So, if you want to pick this book up, I would also suggest picking up #8. Okay, that makes the first full first appearance of DARKSTAR. Um, it also has a character named Alexei Barushkin in it. Now, Alexei Barushkin was one of the head trainers in the Red Room and one of the head trainers that trained Black Widow. Now, he's not a huge spec in this book. I mean, he's just going to be a normal guy with a normal character, but he just adds value to, 7 and 8. So, easily find these books in the $5 to $10 range, right? Go to your LCS, take a look around. Um, Go and look on eBay. You can find one for cheap. Don't panic buy it. You can get a nice copy for cheap. Well under, $10 plus shipping, of course. And then, don't, like I said, don't panic buy for it yet. A lot of people aren't specking on these books. So, but I think that the Soviet super soldiers could very much be characters in the Black Widow movie, and DARKSTAR would definitely be one of those, because she's so linked to Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow. They're training together and all the KGB stuff, and they were agents together and stuff. So from 1976, Champions #7 and 8. Look to pay $5 to $10 for each one of these books. All right. So spec #2 on our list, and we're going to keep up with the Soviet super soldiers, and we're going to bring a couple more of them in. It's lucky we got a couple double appearances here, and this book comes out a couple years later from 1978, and it is the Invincible Iron Man #109. All right. So in this book, like I said, from 1978, it has the first appearance of Vanguard. Vanguard is basically like Captain America's, Captain America, but the Russian version of Captain America. He's very, you know, good. He's like got that same attitude and everything as that Captain America has. Do I think he'll be in the movie? No, because he was the replacement for Red Guardian, right? Red Guardian was kind of the Captain America stand-in at first, but he ended up being killed, and Vanguard took his place in the Soviet super soldiers. So it's good to have Vanguard's first appearance, but meh. More importantly, I think, is the Crimson Dynamo. And this is Crimson Dynamo number 4, DIMITRIBUKHARIN. I think I'm pronouncing that right. But he was the Crimson Dynamo for the longest, right? And through the major, Avengers run, whether you always saw them against the super soldiers, and it would always be the Crimson Dynamo and DIMITRIBUKHARIN. Crimson Dynamo, if you don't know, is basically the Iron Man equivalent for the Russians, right? Big red suit, big red iron armor suit with all the technology and stuff, and he ends up fighting Iron Man, and on the Soviet super soldier sides and stuff like that. But he was the Crimson Dynamo for the longest. He wasn't the first, right? He's the fourth, but he was definitely for the longest. And I have always associated the Crimson Dynamo with him, right? The original Crimson Dynamo, his first appearance is, I think it's Tales of Suspense, really early Tales of Suspense in the 40s and stuff like that. It's a bit more of a pricey book, definitely, than this one, right? If there was a Crimson Dynamo, if we see the Soviet super soldiers and they kind of suss them out in any way, I think there's about a 50-50 chance that it's either going to be the original Crimson Dynamo or here with DIMITRIBUKHARIN. Okay, you can get the first appearances of both. It's a good idea if you want to, plop down the money for that. Like I said, the original Crimson Dynamo's first appearance is spiking. This one is not. Still flying under the radar. Still cheap, right? You can get this book easily. I got it for $5 out of my LCS. Black cover, no spine ticks, nice crisp corners. I'd give it like, a 6.5, 7, right, for $5, right? First appearance of a couple major Soviet characters. Who knows what's going to happen in that Black Widow movie, whether they're going to continue to kind of suss out this Russian stuff and these guys might appear in further movies or other kind of things, Anyways, I think it's a good spec pick for $5. You're not risking a whole bunch getting the first appearance of a major character like the Crimson Dynamo, DIMITRIBUKHARIN. Again, from 1978, it is the Invincible Iron Man 109. Look to pay about the $5 to $10 range for this book in, very good, very fine condition. All right. Next on our list, let's go. He doesn't have a movie coming up, but he eventually will. And everything that this guy is about right now is red hot, except for this book seems to be flying under the radar. And who am I talking about? Silver Surfer, red hot character right now. And I would like to spec on the Silver Surfer one-shot that came out in 1982. Okay? Boom. This guy here. You see little wrinkles in the bag there. It reminds me so much of this, right? Remember we spec'd on that book over a year ago when it was a $5 in the bins kind of book. This book didn't really add much other than to expand a little bit and retcon a little bit of Galactus's origin story. And that's exactly what this book does too. It really adds to the origin story of the Silver Surfer. I think it's a really important book. It has a great story to it. Tells a lot about, the Surfer's motivations, why he's on Earth, why he's still on Earth, what happened to his planet after he was trapped on Earth, all this kind of stuff. A big interaction with Mephisto in it. Again, John Byrne, right? So John Byrne. Oh, right. That was another thing about Iron Man 109. It's a John Byrne Terry Austin cover. I can't think of very many Iron Mans that have a John Byrne cover on them. Like I said, I've been getting multiple copies of this guy, just based on the fact that I think he could very much explode. I think it's a lot of Silver Surfer stuff, like I said, is red hot, right? Here's his #1 appearance. Hundreds of dollars for that guy now. This one just seems to fly under the radar for everybody, right? It's not a hard one to find. It's not an expensive book, but I really think you could see much better appreciation once people kind of realize that, Volume 1, #1, is pricing way out. Even all 18 of the original Volume 1 Silver Surfers are pricing out. So they're going to go for Volume 2, this one shot. Reminds them a lot of this, right? Same year, same author, same illustrator. This also represents the first time a Silver Surfer story came out that was written by somebody other than Stan Lee. Now, Stan Lee had a hand in writing it with John Byrne, but he begrudgingly let John Byrne write this story, right? And he begrudgingly let John Byrne write the Last Galactus story and write this one. John Byrne had a lot of influence in the early 80s around comic books, right? He was the real hot property to go after his X-Men run had just gone through the roof and whatnot. So, from 1982, the Silver Surfer one-shot, or as known as #1, Volume 2. John Byrne written, John Byrne illustrated. No, I don't think it was Terrias. I think it was somebody else. Awesome inks, awesome art, awesome story. Expands on his origin issue. It's a #1 from the early Copper Age. There are all kinds of great reasons to pick up a copy of this book and put it into your collection. I think you'll be very happy with the return later on, especially after Silver Surfer does show up in the MCU in some way, and he will. There's just way too many people that are way too pushing for it, right? He's so popular. Kevin Feige has stated multiple times that he loves the Silver Surfer. That's gold. That when Kevin says that, that's gold to me, right? So grab yourself a little one shot. From 1982, the Silver Surfer one shot, or Volume 2, #1, if you would like to. Look to pay the $5 to $10 range for this, and I'm going to grab some more copies before they start disappearing out of the cheap bins. Anyways, that's a great spec, I think. So continuing with our Silver Surfer stuff, right? I've kind of drew out another undervalued Silver Surfer book, which doesn't send, which there aren't very many of those going around anymore. Like I said, he's a red hot character. But this book comes from the Bronze Age, early Bronze Age, and it is from 1972, and it is The Defenders, #2. Okay? So that original Defenders team, not the Marvel Presents team. So why is this book significant? This book represents when the Silver Surfer joins the Defenders. Okay, this is the first time. It references, when they were all together in Submariner 34, 35, right? Was the first, prototype appearance of the Defenders. Book that's getting a lot of attention. I still think those books are undervalued. But this book, after the events of 34 and 35, Silver Surfer took off. And Doctor Strange ended up joining, right, for the Defenders. But they were never on the team at the same time. This book represents when the Silver Surfer comes back and we finally have the entire Defenders, right, put together into a team. Well, almost. You could count Barbara Norris, the Valkyrie, as part of the Defenders too. She shows up in issue #4, a book that we spec'd on well over a year ago and that you still should be buying. Anyway, so this is the first time that the Silver Surfer joins the Defenders and the first time that we have the complete Defenders team, right? So in a way, this is the very first Defenders team up, right? This is the very first full team of the Defenders as we think about it. Big problem with Defenders that I've always had with the Defenders is they just made that team just way too powerful, right? And you have Namor, who's the king of the sea. You have the Sorcerer Supreme, who's like the best magic user in the galaxy. You have the Incredible Hulk, one of the most strongest characters possible. So why don't we just add the Silver Surfer and have a character with the power cosmic as well? I mean, it was like, man, who can stand against these guys? Anyway, this book is important though. This is the first team appearance for the Silver Surfer. First time he kind of joins in any kind of team. It's a very early appearance of the Silver Surfer as well. Getting back that his original story only came out in 1968, and this book is from 1972. And yeah, it's the kind of finally completes the Defenders, right? So I think it's an important book. This book can be found for around the $40 mark in about a 6.0 range, right? A nice, really nice mid-grade. Careful of that dark cover, right? So you're not going to get a whole bunch of high-grade ones. Like if you get a really high-grade slab one, yeah, you're probably going to pay about a couple $100, right? But even that's cheap if you think about it for a comic book that's almost 50 years old with a black cover, and you can get a 9.4 for around $200. That's cheap. That's really cheap, right? It's not like this came off the shelf, 3 months ago or even 2 years ago. It's like almost 50 years back. Anyways, older than I am, so you know that's old. Anyway, from again 1972, Defenders #2, first full team appearance of the Defenders. Look to pay around $40 to $60 for a decent raw copy of this book. Excellent. And we're going to come up to the last book on our list, and I brought it all the way up into the 2000s, brand new modern book for the time, and it is from 2013, and it is The Superior Spider-Man, number 32. Oh yeah. Now this guy is cheap right now, right? So big, big appearance in this comic book is a character called KERN, who becomes Master Weaver. And if you've read the Spider-Verse event, you know that a big part of this was this group called the Inheritors, and they're jumping around different dimensions, and they're finding the Spider-Person of that dimension and consuming their soul, or his totem, as they were, and they're consuming these Spider-Men, right? So they're killing them in all these different dimensions. Very, very good plot line for the movie. If you were going to have, if you wanted to take a whole bunch of these different Spider-Verse characters and show their different universes and stuff, what a great way than have the different Spider-Men traveling to all the different universes chasing the villain, right? Because Master Weaver can go to all these different dimensions, and the Inheritors capture these Spider-Men and eat their souls, or their totem, as it were. So I think it's a very high probability that he could end up being the big villain for Into the Spider-Verse 2, right? Great plot line, like I said, great plot line to get your characters moving through dimensions. Great plot line to have, you know, great villains, the way that they act and they are. They're like Spider-Man vampires kind of thing, almost. Um, and cheap, right? Nobody knows about this book. It's still flying way, way, way under the radar. Look to play $1 to $5 for this book, right? I pulled this one out of my LCS. Absolutely perfect copy of it. Probably never seen anything but the inside of a, you know, bag and board in a collection bin after it got pulled off the shelf. Easily, you know, 9.8, no problem. $5, right? And that was, you know, I go to a pretty expensive LCS, so $5 was, you know, a lot. $5 Canadian. Um, I definitely think, you know, if you look at what happened in the first Spider-Verse with the Prowler becoming the villain, the Prowler was like hardly even thought of ever by anybody up until that Spider-Verse movie. Like, I probably should have spec'd on his first appearance as being very undervalued, because he was not a major villain for Spider-Man. And all of a sudden, as soon as that movie hit, man, did his first appearance spike. And I think if you go pay $1 for this book, you can see a big spike in the price of this book and be very happy that you went down to your LCS and picked this guy up for $1, right? And you may have the major Spider-Verse villain, you know, right here. Yeah, the Kingpin was too, but his first appearance in number 50 was always very expensive, right? So even that book saw a little bit of a spike because of the Spider-Verse. And modern characters, man, they're coming into their own with these movies, that's for sure. Anyways, I really like this as a spec pick, especially because it's so cheap right now. The Spider-Verse movie is way out there. Apparently they're coming up with some new digital technologies that are going to be applied to the movie for the first time ever in any kind of animated movie, that is just supposed to blow your mind, like even better than the first one in visuals. That's, you know, that's a pretty high bar. The first one was visually very, very good, right? So anyways, let's grab this book up for $1 somewhere, $1 to $5, easy buy. Throw it in your collection. Grab multiple copies if you can. If that guy turns around, you can flip these books pretty quick. Anyways, so from 2013, it is The Superior Spider-Man, number 32. First appearance of Kern. First mention of the Inhibitors. Possible movie villain right there for $1. All right, guys, that's been our 5 comics for this week. I really appreciate the views. Hopefully, you know, there was some value here in this video, and you're going to go out and find yourself a hidden gem somewhere, an undervalued book that can add some value to your collection. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next video. And just remember, Wednesdays are new comic book days, but every day is old comic book day. Excellent. We'll see